Following a pretty awful defeat to San Antonio, getting beat by about 25 points and completely falling apart in the second half, the Lakers have a few changes they need to make or think about making at the bare minimum. And I know they had a pretty rough week, can't forget about that. Dealing with the California wildfires, not having played in a week, a few guys like their head coach losing their home, and obviously that's a lot to take in. But even with that, after a week off, I think we're all hoping for a better performance out of them. Again, they didn't play that bad during the first half, but completely fell apart during the second half due to a combination of both lazy play, bad defense, bad execution, and a few other factors too. And with that being said here, what do they have to change going forward? Can it be changed? What should they prioritize changing? And what do they really need to focus on? We're going to talk about that and break it all down. But before we get too far into it, don't forget to check out g2a.com for the best deals in your favorite games, credits, and everything digital entertainment. You can check them out in the video description down below. But now getting back to our topic, and again, I think it was a pretty bad loss to their team, especially during that second half. That's not what they want to look like, not what they want to play like, and especially on their own home court. And not to mention during a retirement of a legendary Laker at that being Michael Cooper. The Lakers came into their game last night having a 12-5 home record, pretty good, and a whole lot better than their road record, being 8-11, but it didn't really look like it last night. They were sloppy with the ball, didn't shoot the ball well, their defense was very lax throughout the game, they really got targeted on their defensive execution, and a whole lot of things went wrong for them throughout. But beginning with that sloppy play, that came on offense to them, and primarily with the ball in their hands, they ended up committing 19 total turnovers, and after trading away D'Angelo Russell, it's really been up and down for them in that regard. One game they'll be completely fine, between the two of Austin Reeves and LeBron handling it, both primary ball handling and primary playmaking duties. Again, one game they'll be completely fine. Throughout that time frame, Austin Reeves had a new career high 16 assist game, LeBron's had multiple 10 assist games, and one game it might be fine, but last night that was not the case. LeBron had 7 turnovers, Austin Reeves had 4 turnovers, and then off the bench, their third ball handler, Gabe Vincent, he had 3 turnovers in only about 17 minutes, and all around it was not good for them. They were lazy with the ball, really didn't take care of the ball, made some bad reads offensively, and that led to that 19 turnover total. And while I definitely would have understood if they're matching up with a more disruptive team, a team like Atlanta or Oklahoma City for example, but that was not the case. They were playing against San Antonio, who currently rank in the bottom 10 in both steals per game and deflections per game too. Not really the definition of disruptive out there. And yet, they made them look very disruptive, simply by giving them the ball away at times and not being careful with the ball. And with that in mind here, it kind of does bring into question, do they need another ball handler? Do they need another point guard? Or what exactly do they need to fix the problem? Well, I'm not sure we can say for certain quite yet, but I definitely am leaning toward them needing external help rather than being able to fix it internally. Maybe between LeBron and Austin Reeves they can figure it out. Again, one game they'll be completely fine, but obviously last night they're not. But then off the bench, they don't really get any help off the bench. Gabe Vincent's not a true point guard, not really a primary ball handler on top of that. Shake Milton could kind of help, but haven't really found the correct way to integrate him, and obviously he's not a true point guard either. So maybe they could use one more point guard or one more primary ball handler. I've talked about a few options to a trade that might address it or help address it. Maybe a cheaper option like Delano Banton from Portland, or maybe a more expensive option, definitely has an injury history, but maybe a Malcolm Brogdon. Some people like Colin Sexton. Not sure I go that far, especially with the cons that would come with them, but they definitely do have options to a trade, but I'm not sure they're at that point quite yet, and I wouldn't call it their biggest need quite yet either. I think Reeves and LeBron can handle it, but they gotta be more locked in, and especially more locked in than they were during the second half last night. But then for another problem, it's really been about their entire defense, the scheme on defense, how they're being attacked on defense, and then on top of that, them not helping themselves on defense either, which I think they would be able to do by making the switch from Rui Hachimura to Dorian Finney-Smith in their starting lineup, and not having Hachimura play about 10 more minutes than Dorian Finney-Smith as well, which they did happen to do last night. I mean, if you watch how they're getting switch hunted out there, Anthony Davis not being able to help on it because they're taking him out of the play at times, and then with that, being really slow at closing out on defense too. I mean, between LeBron, Reeves, and Hachimura, they're all pretty slow at closing out, and that ends up giving up a lot of open 3-point shots, or simply being late on defense and the timing on defense that they really don't have between them. And even with that one switch from Dorian Finney-Smith or from Hachimura to Dorian Finney-Smith, I think that would help them out. Might not completely fix the problem, but it definitely would help it, and I think it would create a better balance within their rotation. And I get it, they didn't want to overwhelm him right away. Let him take his time, learn the playbook, and find chemistry with guys in the team before throwing him into the fire, that being the starting lineup, but at this point, I think he's ready for it, and it would be an upgrade for their overall rotation. I mean, after arriving on their team, Dorian Finney-Smith has played better than Rui Hachimura, has gotten less minutes than him, only has played more than him one time so far, and it's really been rather confusing. Whether you're talking about offense or defense really being the big one here with him, he's been upgraded in that regard. I mean, shooting better from the 3-point line, playing better, more switchable defense, and overall being a better fit out there on the court too. But then for one more big problem that we'll talk about, and don't get me wrong, we could go through and dissect little problems all day, but for one more big problem, and really for their team lately, it would have to be their center help behind Anthony Davis. Between Jackson Hayes after coming back from injury, he hasn't looked good, and then when they try to play small ball, that hasn't worked out for them either. With Jackson Hayes though, after coming back from injury only averaging about 3 points per game on 38.5% field goal shooting, nearly half of his field goal percentage from last season, and that's obviously not good. And between that, the poor rebounding, the poor defense, the poor rim protection, he's been net negative for their team out there, and then between him and Rui Hachimura, who have kind of been filling that backup center role for their team when Anthony Davis is off the court, it's not worked out well for them. It's been a combination at both the rim and the point of attack, and you really can't win on defense playing that way. In my opinion, I think they'd be better off going back to Christian Koloko. Yes, he is fairly limited, and he really can't be their long-term solution even if they want him to be this season. Does have a 50-game limit due to being a two-way contract, but with the way that Jackson Hayes has been playing lately, obviously not good. And then with Rui Hachimura not being able to fill that role for them, I don't think that's the answer, and they should go back to Koloko for a short-term solution. Maybe they'll find a longer-term solution with a guy like Christian Wood if and when he can ever get healthy, or maybe through a trade, and I think that would be the ideal solution here. The more long-term solution and not simply a short-term patch for them. I think they should go that route. What they're trying out right now is not working, and they do need to realize that sooner rather than later. And well, between the problem and lack of production at backup center, the defense problem, and how Dorian Finney-Smith might help them and be an upgrade for them here over Rui Hachimura, and then the point guard issue, the lack of reliability, and especially coming off the bench, I think three guys in their team that are under the most pressure going forward might be Rui Hachimura, Gabe Vincent, and Jackson Hayes. Now, does that mean they'll be traded? Maybe or maybe not, that will depend on who you ask, but definitely under pressure for more minutes going forward, their spot in the rotation, and how it might be affected or should be affected going forward. Again, these are definitely not the only problems or the only guys that need to be called out per se. Obviously, I mentioned guys like LeBron and Austin Reeves before, gotta fix that turnover problem, and they need to prove that they can handle that point guard duty and ball handling duty, so then a guy like Gabe Vincent doesn't have to really do it for them, or they don't have to bring in additional help to address that problem. Along with many other issues as well, but that's kind of my takeaway from their game last night, and the way they've been playing lately, despite not having played for the past week other than their game last night. But with that being said, what do you guys think? How do you feel about it? What changes do you think they should make or will make going forward? And how do they address their current problems? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. But I think that'll pretty much do it for this one. And if you enjoyed the video, then I'll greatly appreciate it if you dropped a like, subscribe to the channel if you have not already, and hit that notification bell to never miss out when I upload a video. But as always, thank you for watching and have a great day.